Hi, good afternoon. Could you tell us your name, a little bit about yourself, and which delegation did you represented, and which committee, and does any of your topics had to do with human rights? Could you explain us a little bit?
Hi, thanks for asking. My name is María José Gómez and I represented the country of Benin in the Interpol Committee. Topic A was the illicit smuggling of immigrants from Latin America through the Mexican border. This is a worldwide known subject due to its disturbing increase during the past few years. People from Latin America tend to migrate to the United States and to Canada in order to search for better quality of life and opportunities. But they are forced in a certain way to contact smugglers to help them get to the border. And this becomes an issue because these smugglers are usually part of criminal networks that use migrants for drug smuggling, trafficking, and kidnap. Now, on the other hand, topic B was focused on the trafficking of child labor in West Africa. This case was more related to my country because unfortunately it is a common practice in Benin. And the reason of this is that minors tend to stay at acquaintances' houses with educational purposes, and this creates the perfect atmosphere for traffickers to take advantage of the situation and to kidnap children for labor. Now, both topics clearly violate the human rights of those involved. Their dignity is not respected at all. They do not have neither security nor freedom and receive inhumane and cruel treatments from the traffickers. And of course, for topic A, asylum is denied.
Oh, me too. I was in the same committee as Majo, which is Interpol, but I was representing the Republic of Colombia. So, as she said, the topic A was the illicit smuggling of immigrants, and the topic B was, child labor and child trafficking in West Africa.
I'm Ximena Zambrano, and I represented the delegation of Colombia UNEP, which stands for United Nations Environment Program. And in this committee, we were addressing two main topics. Topic A was regarding about some solutions and measures for them to be implemented during the reactivation of industries after the pandemic. And topic B was relating about a informative campaign and educational campaign regarding the environmental crisis and how actions that we do every day have an impact in the environment.
Hi, so first I'll introduce myself. Tania Macías, and I represented Russia in Interpol, which stands for the International Criminal Police Organization. And my two topics were topic A, which was the illicit smuggling of immigrants from Latin America through the Mexican border, and topic B, which was the trafficking of minors and child labor in West Africa. I believe both topics are very relevant because they talk about these human rights exploitation in a very negative way, and they're not as addressed as they should be. Well, the smuggling of immigrants is a bit more addressed than what's going on in Africa, but I still strongly believe that they're very, very relevant topics because they affect millions of people, and we are not raising the awareness towards it like we should. And I just think that various positions could be taken when it comes to the smuggling of immigrants, and that's understandable. However, I personally believe that some people are taking a very tough position because at the end of the day, immigrants are still people, and they're currently being treated way worse than cattle even. But when it comes to the trafficking of minors in Africa, that's not controversial at all. So I found it very interesting to be debated.
Okay, and could you tell us how does your own personal position relates with the position that your country represented? Did you have the same point of view or different? Did your perspective change as you investigated about this topic? What can you tell us about that?
Thanks for asking. Taking into account the topics, it is obvious that my personal position was that everything must be done in order to decrease these problems in the world. The conflicts cannot be eliminated because aspects such as culture, economy, and politics are heavily related, but there are a lot of actions that can be taken in order to decrease the problem. The government of my country believes in the same as I do, because I could identify this by the processes and deals that they are part of. For example, the approval of a new national action plan for elimination of worst forms of child labor, as well as a new penal code that protects the victims of these crimes. I was partially glad that I didn't have to change my point of view in regarding topics as serious as this, but nonetheless, it would have been interesting to adapt to a different way of thinking. By the end of my investigation, I was able to learn more things about my country, which I found surprising because even if it's not developed enough to cause significant changes, Benin is still doing its best to improve the situation. And I think that is very important.
That's actually a very interesting answer. I can say that Colombia's position are relatively similar to my beliefs, since Colombia claims to always support decisions that are best for the state's security and the people's well-being, of course, making it easy for me to actually say what I thought while I was still representing my state. However, Colombia would not get really involved in making sure that new laws are now being actually taken into account, or would never help economically, which is logical but still would bother me. Like, as an example, the state of Colombia would say that drug trafficking is decreasing and being solved due to the military effort in the state, and I agree with that, but statistically speaking, there are no big changes being made, so I would make something different that the state of Colombia did. So, I agree with the fact that Colombia supports resolutions that will improve the situation, but I don't think the state actually acted in order for that improvement, besides being part of certain, international organizations. My personal position actually stayed the same during the whole moon, I can say that, but after my participation, I was glad that I had to learn about the different states' positions, which I hadn't had the time before, and now I realize how the real world works and how it is possible to actually reach agreements that have not been reached.
Well, in contrast with the solutions that my delegation proposed, for example, the delegation of Colombia, which I represented, its solutions were more adjusted in order for third world countries not to invest so much in taking care of the environment. And this is where my personal opinion interferes, because I personally believe that actually third world countries are the ones with more capacities and with more opportunities to change their way of working and for them to be more friendly with the environment than first world countries, because these richer countries are already developed and they have to change their whole dynamic. However, the third world countries can just start their dynamic as an environmentally friendly one. But in real life, the delegation of Colombia does not believe that. That's why this delegation proposed mainly like monetary help from first world countries. I agreed to monetary help, but I didn't find it so necessary. But besides that point, that was like claiming first world countries for them to be better than developing countries. That's the only clause that my personal opinion and the delegation I was representing differ.
Oh, my personal position, that's a great question. I'd say, well, Russia doesn't really have a say in any of these issues because it's not directly involved. However, I try to participate as much as I could, definitely, because I'm still part of the committee, and I tried to contribute some opinions based on facts, which were kind of neutral, we could say, but still kind of contribute to it. Personally, I believe that immigration should be illegal, that people should have easier access to green cards, to visas, because this process takes so much time, so it's almost impossible to actually be a legal immigrant in the United States. So this is pretty much because of President Trump. Well, now it's Biden, but yeah, basically. And when it comes to child trafficking in West Africa, I feel like just capitalism has pretty much corrupted these places, because the sole reason for this trafficking of minors is to exploit them in labor, and I find that truly horrifying, to have children as laborers without paying them, starving them, hurting them. And big companies, big American companies specifically, such as chocolate companies or food companies, are known for doing this, and no one's really saying anything about it. They just kind of ignore it, and I think it's huge problematic. And I know there are multiple organizations that are against this and that go over to Ivory Coast and West Africa and try to stop it, try to target the people who are involved into this, but still it's a huge problematic, and it would be of great help if people addressed the issue, tried to donate, the government actually addressed it more, etc. Yeah, basically I just believe these two topics are very important because they put many lives at risk.
Oh, okay. And regarding the fellow delegates, did your arguments were like good? And what can you tell me about the arguments and the debate itself? Do you consider your own participation important and your delegates, the delegates' participation important? Please tell me more about your fellow mates.
The arguments of other delegates were very well done, and they didn't differ from their state's position or perspective. And I know this because in order to prepare myself for the debate, I investigated each country's actions and public opinions of the government. And the majority of the delegations participated, taking into account what other countries had stated before, which is something that I included too. Also, a large part of the delegates exposed facts and statistics like I did. And nevertheless, I think that some delegations were a little too aggressive compared to the way they exposed my point of view, which created, I think, unnecessary conflicts between states. In my opinion, I think that my involvement in the debate was adequate. The majority of my contributions were concrete and had a purpose, compared to other people that only talked to achieve the minimum of participations. I think that I could improve the way in which I say my arguments by giving them more intonation and maybe progress with my diction.
I personally was very impressed with the other participants because they had the ability to really investigate the informations and facts about the question super fast, especially Chile and USA because they were fighting between them. However, I feel like the caucuses reached a point where the opinions were too repetitive and with the purpose of gaining only points, as a person, and not actually representing the state and reaching conclusions for the resolution. So it was not like a nurturing discussion, it was more like only arguing at a certain point. And talking about my own arguments, I do believe that the participation I made was well informed and well prepared and well done the arguments. And I did help reach the resolutions by stating who I supported, which a lot of states did not do. So we could not reach the unmoderated caucuses sometimes. So yeah, I did think I could speed the process in some parts. However, I did not fully understand that in order to be the best delegate, you don't need to be very important to the topic. Like USA, for example. So I did not have a say, for example, in West Africa's situation. But I could still sometimes maybe say my opinion. I just didn't want to because I felt like I would give facts that were not needed in the time of the caucus because I would just affect the caucus with the time.
Well, my participation was kind of... I would have liked to participate more, definitely, because I've been in a model of United Nations before, multiple times, when I was in secondary school. But I feel like since my country wasn't that involved, there was not much I could say that actually contributed to the debate. Because of course I could just be attacking other delegates and just trying to counter argument. But but that wouldn't really take us anywhere. So I just really decided to check my facts and check what's important and check how to give fairly neutral arguments, but that did spark a discussion maybe, so that the people who were actually involved, such as a delegation of Mexico, of United States, or of Egypt, which is in Africa, could eventually just develop more and take decisions in order to come up with a solution. But it was overall really fun, and I learned a lot about the topics that I previously didn't really know. And I heard many sides, many opinions, many political conflicts that are involved into these things, because they're pretty complex problems. It's not something that can just be solved with like a magic organization or donation. There's actually a lot to it.
Oh, okay, and finally, could you answer how did your committee came up with the resolution? Please explain as far as you can. And how did your delegation contributed to the consensus? Please give me some kind of a conclusion. What do you take from the Model UN?
Okay, so finally, the topic A was discussed first in the debate, so we were only able to complete its resolution. We drafted it in favor of the most vulnerable, which are the migrants, of course, and the delegates from Latin American countries proposed the creation of social programs to improve the current situations in their states. For example, the implementation of trade schools to low-income households in order to provide migrants with the opportunity to have a stable income and be able to remain in the countries with legitimate and dignified employment. Unfortunately, instead of listening to everyone's opinion, some delegations took full control of the unmoderated caucus to express their ideas without any organization at all, and by interrupting each other. By this point, I was tired. Honestly, I was tired of trying to be taken into consideration, so I simply wrote the proposal of my position paper in the resolution. It might have not been like the best action, but the unmoderated caucus was literally was a chaos, to be honest. I believe that the chair should have intervened to put order, so everyone could have participated. However, it was interesting to hear how everyone tried to do the best, having in mind a global stability and unification.
Oh, this is very interesting actually. I think I agree with a lot of stuff that Majo said, because the reaching of a resolution in our committee was very interesting. At first I really liked it because we looked at the solution from the why this problem is happening and which states can help for the solving of it. And like as an example, Greece discussed with the USA how open would that delegate be to use the money for protection of borders in the US to actually use it for Latin American countries and improve their economy in order for people not to leave. But the resolution was solved by everyone adding what would help the problem dissolve itself. And a very positive thing that happened was that we only made one resolution, so we did not lose time in two teams, and then at the end one resolution would be voted. But at the same time, that was negative because, as Majo probably said, because it was very notorious, what happened is that everyone would just talk and talk and talk, and no one would listen. So there was a point where the person who spoke louder was this person who was right. So only 3 delegates were actually making the decisions, and the ones who weren't being heard would only write the proposal. So at the end, we had so many proposals that, of course, our paper was denied. So we needed to correct it, and that's when we lost time. However, the final resolution, I am very pleased with it because I like the ideas in the resolution.
Well, to get to the resolution, it was fairly easy because most of my committee agreed with each other, because I think we all kind of believe that human rights are very important. But it wasn't that hard. It was just elaborate to think about exactly what points we were going to write in the resolution. And I did contribute with some of them, like making visas more accessible for immigrants, and when it came to child labor, to actually prosecute the people who've been caught doing these illicit child smuggling trafficking, because I think that's pretty understandable, that's pretty logic. But the countries that were more involved had the ability to propose laws or propose actual legal, prosecution, actual legal action in order to solve the issue. So that was pretty good.
Both topics were equally important. After all, the resolutions that all the delegations came up with were created to protect and improve the life quality of the citizens of the delegations involved. After all, a decision that can have an impact in Brazil could also have an impact in Japan. So it was kind of a teamwork. And at first, the delegations looked like we were coming up with the same resolution. However, Japan started with a solution that had more technology and more money involved, and the delegation that I represented, the delegation of Colombia, had a resolution that was more affordable and was thinking more about third world countries than first world countries. So at the end, the most voted one was the one proposed first by Japan. But since it isn't a competition, at the end we added all the third world clauses that my delegation proposed, and they were annexed to Japan's resolution, so all the countries got benefited. And the second topic was actually really easy since all the delegations were together on that one, and the outcome was great. Well, actually, at the end of the model, I won Best Delegate, and I improved my communication skills and my debate abilities. And I will, as I stated before, I will definitely do another Model UN anytime. I hope it is soon. And I take with me all the knowledge that I acquired at this model, even environmental conscious. But yeah, it was a wonderful experience. Thank you for the time.